to the fourth episode. So 4 weeks we've been going. Wow. Again, just some housekeeping. So I'm not sure whether people have been on. I know a majority will have been on, but those that are new tonight, I know there's a couple that are new. Just some sort of general housekeeping. Try and keep yourselves on mute when you can, and then we'll unmute you as and when, and we get a bit of interaction going around questions and things like that. Make sure you've got a brew to hand. We'll look to run for sort of an hour, certainly the next hour, hour and a half. We will pause for the clap, which I did forget first or second week, so we'll make sure that we pause for that. If you're using a smartphone, it's fine, you can use them, but the experience is slightly different, so you've got to toggle between the two rather than seeing everything on one screen. So it's just to be aware of that. If anybody is using that, it's worth having a look for next week if you're joining us with a tablet or laptop potentially if you've got one. Use the microphone to unmute yourself, so mute and unmute, and if you want to put the video on, you can do. If it does kind of affect the internet and speeds like that, as soon as you put your video on, just be mindful of that. Use the chat function, so right throughout, and this is, to be fair, this is going to be a decent one, certainly with Darren on, because I know it's going to be really at the heart of grassroots, which is exactly what we're all sort of in it for. There's a couple of numbers on there. You've probably got mine and Ben's, so if you do need anything, give us a shout. We've had our fingers crossed last couple of weeks that nobody's contacted us for tech support, so I'm quite happy with that. So we'll keep that running. What's coming up? So Darren's delighted to have Darren back on, even though he's not in the county virtually, he is with us. We probably owe a lot, and I think it's fair to say, and I'm sure Ben will echo it, we owe a lot to Darren, and certainly next week's guest as well that's going to be coming on. So it's a bit of a double whammy, really, this. It's a turn back in time. So Darren done an awful lot of work with us in Cumberland, sort of before he took certainly the job he's in now. I think it was the one before that, Darren, as well. You were with Bolton, I think. So yeah, we owe an awful lot to Darren. He was our old regional coach development manager when the structure was that way, and done sort of a lot of great work. Some of you on the call will know him, some of you might not. So yeah, it's great to get Darren back in, and certainly share the next hour of his sort of probably grassroots journey. I know there's some bullet points on there, but I think, Daz, you're going to share pretty much a bit of everything, aren't you? And open to questions.
Yeah, I'm going to try and share what I've been doing recently and kind of where it all started, and link that in with my role as an FA member of staff and how that's influenced me as a grassroots coach. So I'll certainly try my best and give it warts and all, so to speak.
Good stuff. Do you want to share your screen, mate? And we may as well get cracking.
Yeah.
Just well done doing that, guys. So as per usual, any sort of questions, anything at all like that, just fire it in the chat function. And what we'll do is we'll just unmute and ask Darren yourself, or we can ask the question for you, me or Ben, and we'll go from there. Are you winning, Daz?
I am.
Yeah, you're coming now.
You see that?
Yeah.
Okay, folks. Well, welcome. Just glad to be invited, James. First and foremost, fourth on must mean that I'm fairly high in people's thinking, so that's great. And as you said, you know, Ian coming on next week, it's going to be like the old Northwest regional staff coming together. So what I thought I would just kind of begin with is just a little bit of kind of my journey. And I know you asked me to share with everybody some stuff around grassroots football, and that's where it all began. So quite some time back, 1980, proper grassroots football. I am pictured on there, and That's me on the front row, 8 years of age, and that was my first experience of playing for a grassroots team. If I remember correctly, 8 years of age, but quite a few of the other players were older, so it wasn't playing for a grassroots junior club. It was actually playing for the Cub Scout team. So that was then. This is now. 40 years later, that's the group of lads who I'm lucky enough to coach, group of under 16s, which I'm going to share some stuff with you about those guys and the journey that I've been on. So, yeah, and a little bit grayer and a little bit different to when I first started out on this journey. I appreciate that some of you that have joined us this evening kind of know a little bit about me. For those that don't, this kind of is just a little walkthrough of, I guess, my experience as a coach. So what you can see on there is I have worked for a county FA. So I worked for Lancashire. That was my first experience of football development as it was, and did a little bit of work for Adidas in terms of some of their football presence. And then you'll see on there there's a few professional football clubs. I was lucky enough to work for Everton, only for a season, but that was my first experience of coaching in a professional club way back in the 90s. So yeah, a lot of the stuff that happened then I've kind of pushed to the back of me thinking. But I worked for quite some time at Blackburn, 9 seasons, did all sorts of different age groups. And probably became a bit of an expert in terms of the early bit of the youth development phase, under 12s, under 13s. Just working around. When I left Lancashire County FA, I went to work for, dare I say, JJB, and they had some commercial centres, so I helped them set those up. That didn't last very long. Went and worked for a charity, so I worked for the Prince's Trust. Worked for them for about 5 years. It's fair to say that it knocked a few of the rough edges off me. Really enjoyed my time there, but I was also coaching at the same time. So whilst I was working for the Prince's Trust, I was coaching at Blackburn, trying to combine 2 jobs. I then went and did some coaching at Preston, and at the same time. Also started working for the FA, and as James said before, I spent 5 years as a regional coach development manager. I then, and I'm not sure whether it was the right decision, I decided to get out, went and worked for Bolton Wanderers, worked for Bolton for 3 years, and that's when I kind of stopped working in professional game and went coaching in grassroots. And you can see on there there's a club badge for Brinskull. That's the club that I became a volunteer coach, and as you know, many of you will understand, got involved because my lad wanted to start playing football, and that was a local club that had a little bit of knowledge around. So grassroots club, that's where I'm still coaching. I then kind of drifted back to work for the FA, and I was thinking this afternoon whilst I was sat enjoying the sunshine, and I rejoined the FA 6 years ago. So I've actually worked in my 2 stints. This is a year longer than the first time, so 11 years in total. When I came back to work for the FA, looked after the coach mentoring programme. Was looking after what happened across the Northwest. So that kind of brought me back into contact with the guys up at Cumberland. And then more recently, I've shifted across, and I'm one of the coach development managers. So work alongside Dave Morris, who looks after Cumberland and Westmoreland. So that's just a little bit of, I guess, my pathway. So when James asked us to put something together, it wasn't straightforward. There's a lot, it's fair to say, floating around in between my ears, and I just thought it'd be quite useful to kind of just share my experience as a coach in the grassroots game, but also try to share with you just how you convert a lot of the theory into practice. In as much, you'll go on a coach education course, you'll attend CPD, but what does it actually look like when you are out there on a weekday evening doing a coaching session, or on a weekend when you've got the games that your teams are involved with? What does it actually look like, and how do you kind of have an impact on the players that you're lucky enough to coach? So what I've tried to do is I've put together various different slides just to share some ideas, show you some of the resources that I've put together. Yes, they've been influenced by my experience of working for the governing body as a coach developer. But first and foremost, I've always considered myself to be a coach. And certainly my time in the professional game, I enjoyed it, but it was only ever part-time. My experience from that has certainly influenced what I've then tried to do in the grassroots game. So heck of a lot of learning, and hopefully I'll share some stuff with you which will be useful. If you do have any questions, please put them in the chat box. I think James and I are going to play a little bit of tennis in terms of if there are any questions around what I share and show. I'm happy to stop, let people ask questions, and we'll take it from there. So just some things which I thought might be worth useful just to kind of consider before we get going. So I'm a coach developer. So what does it actually mean when you're trying to create this culture of development, whether you're coaching an under sevens or you're coaching an under 14s, or like myself, as you know, I'm now coaching a group of under 16s. So what does it actually mean? So I thought it'd be quite useful just to touch on a few things from an FA perspective. And then I'm going to look at a grassroots club perspective. That's the club where I'm a volunteer coach. So it's Brinskull, small village in between Chorley and Blackburn. For those that are unaware where it is, so it's quite rural. We've certainly grown over the past number of years and seen huge change. I've then thought, so what we'd look at what's required to achieve this culture of development. So I kind of call that the nuts and bolts. And then I thought it might be useful just to say, how do we measure the impact of what we're doing? So just some of the things which we've used to kind of check and challenge whether we're having an impact on the players, and is it worthwhile? So those just some considerations. So just from an FA perspective, and it's never lost on me this, that the FA's had in place a vision, and that's kind of what it is. It is very much, it's about to train, develop and qualify coaches, but we want coaches to be more innovative, and we want them to teach the players the game. So that's kind of the backdrop. You'll all be very, very familiar with the DNA. It's something which certainly in my current role as a CCD, it's been very helpful in terms of helping clubs develop their own philosophies, their own thinking. I'm going to share some stuff with you about what we did at our club, but it also in terms of coach education, for those of you that are on that pathway, the level 1 and the level 2 and the B license are all functioning around these core elements of the DNA. just in terms of the coaching, the training, I've managed to dig this out from a really old presentation around DNA, and it kind of highlights some key things. So certainly about creating best practice, or this environment that we want to establish for our players, and that's something that's always been really important, working with the lads in grassroots, and it is about just preparing the players and the teams to hopefully give them every chance to be successful as individuals and as a team. Again, you may well be familiar with that. That's just highlighting this importance of plan, do, review, and certainly my experience these past few years with the players I'm lucky enough to coach, it's been quite pertinent that we do have to plan stuff. The do is the enjoyable bit. That's what the players look forward to. That's what certainly I look forward to. A Thursday evening coaching the lads and the games programme on the weekend, and then without forgetting that it's also important to review and reflect, and that's just then really helpful in terms of that forward planning. And again, if you're not familiar, those 12 fundamentals that are fairly well documented, not suggesting that you should try and deliver all of these in every session, but certainly taking on board some of the thinking around these. That's from my role as a CCD, certainly influenced my thinking as a grassroots coach. So Brett, grassroots experience. So the club is Brinskull. It's interesting in terms of its size. So I guess in terms of it being a charter standard club, it's a development club. It's not a community club. Relatively small in terms of numbers of teams and players when I started volunteering, but it's continued to grow and grow. Probably very much like the clubs that some of you guys are connected to, but it's central around the village. Although now we begin to draw players from a much broader cross section. Thought it'd be useful just to share with you our own unique DNA, which was something which I kind of put together just to give us something that was really simple and straightforward for the coaches kind of to understand, but also to give us a unique identity. So share that with you shortly. I'll talk to you around some stuff around this culture of development and try and take you through from foundation phase through to that latter part of the youth development phase. That's been really important in terms of having some consistency around what we've described as values, beliefs and behaviours. So having that club philosophy, or having that individual coaching philosophy that mirrors what we're trying to do as a club. So we are a collection of volunteers. I'm not the head coach in the club. I don't sit on the committee. I'm just one of the coaches. But what I try and do is I just try and subtly influence what we're about as a club, and try and share some words of wisdom and some friendly advice with the other volunteer coaches. And I'm kind of a bit of a sounding board as opposed to somebody that drives the club. I thought it'd be quite useful just to touch some stuff about the players and some things that we've put together to help with their development. So it goes without saying we've got a player-centred approach, and hopefully some of the examples that I'll share with you will demonstrate that. I've come up with something which I've kind of described as the key ingredients. I think the origins of that were very much talking to the players. It's evolved, but we managed to come up with a simple model which probably we put in place round about 5-6 years ago. So when the players were under 11, so they were top primary, and I can recall I sat down with them at one of the venues in the summer. It was pre-season training, and I said, what do you think? What are the things that we want to kind of say about the team? And then we've linked that in with some stuff with what the club's about. So this was very much the players and myself. So the key ingredients, and that stuck with us from under 11s through to under 16s, and it's something that we kind of refer back to. And then I thought it might be just interesting just to share some stuff with you around our coaches, and then some stuff around parents and guardians. So that's our club DNA. It's been in place for quite a while. I'm always happy to kind of share it. My first experience with Brinscoll was they had it was something like a 20+ page document, which it sat on a website. Nobody looked at it. It was put together with good intention, but it really didn't illustrate what the club was about. So certainly the FA were introducing the England DNA. I set about trying to create something which I felt it represented the club. So what you can see there is the 5 hexagons. So there's a little bit of a description around who we are. So this now it takes a focal point on anything that's shared with parents or new players that join the club. So who we are, and by all means have a read. I'm not going to narrate it out to you. The how we play was very much, I guess the inspiration of it was trying to reflect what we're trying to encourage the players to do. So there's some key words there in terms of respect and teamwork and sportsmanship. That's what, when we kind of talk about those values, beliefs and behaviours, that was really important. And we're a development club, so you'll note there we've kind of put in that winning games not our priority, but our success as teams, as coaches and as a club. It's about that individual improvement of the boys and girls that play for the various teams across the 4 corners. So players, which are integral to what what we're about as coaches. Those were kind of just some things regarding we wanted the players to take responsibility for their own learning and development, and we're kind of there to help them with that. And then that piece underneath I guess reminding us about we want them to demonstrate appropriate behaviours, whether they're just starting out with the club in our under 5s, under 6s, I think now, or if they're with the older stage group, which is our guys as under 16s. And then just moving around how we support. So what we do in terms of support for the volunteers that are involved. So those people who unwittingly, like me, agreed to step forward and be that volunteer. So if they're the coaches or if they're parents that have committed themselves to be part of the committee or other roles that we have. So just how we support them. and then lastly, just our coaches. So player development being really important and at the heart of what we do. We're recognising the players of individuals, and we're trying to support their development at training and in the games, and just how we want our coaches to represent the club. So it's a one-pager. I'd love to be able to say to you that was the only draft that I came up with. That was probably about the 10th or the 11th or the 12th draft, but eventually we came up with something, and it kind of sums the club up.
Darren, there's just one of the questions. Chris P, do you want to unmute yourself and just ask that, because I'm not quite sure which angle you mean or about who.
Fire away, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. Darren, how are you? This is Chris from America.
Hi, Chris.
Are you well?
I'm good, thank you. Very well.
Good. So the question is, how was this received when you put it across to the club? Obviously, you said it was a 20-page document on a website, hiding. How did people receive it? The parents, the stakeholders. Yeah. How did they take to this?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. The guy who established the club, who was he was the chairman. He'd put that original document together. I think he was very mindful that it had a lot of content in it, but it wasn't necessarily content that was being shared with coaches. Coaches weren't reading it. Parents who were making a decision for their sons and daughters to come to the club, they were, blissfully unaware that document existed because it sat on a website. And I had a conversation with him. I said, "This is, what's happening in terms of how the FA is trying to support grassroots clubs." I said, "Would you like me to come up with something which reflects our club?" So he gave me kind of license to do that, to get buy-in, shared it with some of the other coaches, some of the other, the other volunteer coaches, asked them to contribute towards it, adapt it, amend it, and ran it past the coaches, the other volunteer coaches that were helping myself and me helping them with the particular team that I was looking at, and we kind of came up with something which looked like that, and then we just shared it with committee coaches at one of our get-togethers. I can't recall whether it was the start of the season or the end of the season or somewhere in the middle, and I guess the document was born, and the 20 plus page document disappeared. So was it an easy sell? Yes. And I think it's something which, when a new player comes and joins us, if they want to know what we're about as a club, they're more likely to look at the one page than the 20 plus pager. Does that answer the question, Chris?
Yes, Darren, thank you. Buy-in and shared standards and expectations. Brilliant.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Okay, folks. So just some stuff. So I thought about key ingredients. Where was this born? I think I'd mentioned before a conversation with the players around what they felt was important. Very informal, and I kind of went away with various words, various things running through my mind, and came up with something that was going to be visual. a model, if you will. So this is kind of what came out of the discussions with the players. So we wanted players who demonstrated pace, not speed, whilst that's important. But those were kind of the 4 key words that came out of those discussions with the lads. So under 11s, top primary, and we kind of distilled that this is what we came up with. So it was important for them, and I guess also from us as coaches, that they demonstrated attitude, commitment and effort. And if we kind of got that, then we were probably going to, allied with performance, be really trying to establish this culture of development. We were also very keen to make sure that the players demonstrated what we felt were positive behaviours both on and off the pitch, and I'll share some stuff with you shortly, which looks at things from a 4-corner perspective. So, and I guess those what we wanted was a really consistent approach for all the coaching sessions and games which players would be involved with. So consistency from the players themselves, but also from us as coaches, and that's really been integral. So what did the model kind of look like? That was my best attempt at illustrating what we were trying to do. So effort is at the heart of everything that we do. Probably that gives you a glimpse of, I guess, my philosophy as a coach. So effort, would be the one thing that the players could control, and that would be integral to what we're about as a team, and that's certainly been consistent all the way through, from when the players joined the club as under 7s and all the way through now as under 16s. We also felt it was important that attitude and commitment were kind of the foundations of what we're about, and that would allow us to, if you will, get the right performance out the players, whether that was in training or in games. And just running through everything, it was always going to be about behaviours, then behaving as good young people, but also as individuals and players within the team. So that was kind of the culmination of some discussions with the boys, and we came up with that model. So just touching on some stuff, and I've had to dig this out. This was created when the boys were in the foundation phase, and at the time I coined the phrase "fridge food" because the one spot where the players would make a beeline for, certainly in my house, it was the fridge. So we created these visuals. It was just to get the lads thinking about good habits on and off the pitch. So we had the on the pitch stuff, and just came up with some simple things which we could drop into each of the 4 corners. So without going through them all, if we just pick out some examples. So in the technical corner, we recognised that taking care of the ball, whether that was passing or dribbling, was really important. That was really important. We wanted the boys to take care, when they had possession. And the flip side, we always wanted them to try and win the ball back quickly from the other team. Just moving across to look at the psychological corner, things like always trying your best, being determined, and those real positive behaviours that we were trying to instill in. Just moving on to the social corner, we wanted them to enjoy playing football. Bottom line was enjoy the game, and show those behaviours and respect and the team, for their teammates and officials. And then just move around to the physical corner, having good balance and being able to move as quickly as you can around the pitch. So just some highlights in terms of stuff on the pitch. And then off the pitch, in a similar vein, that was kind of getting them to think about what they did away from the coaching sessions or away from the games. As I say, it was something that we put in place very early in the foundation phase. So you'll know they're in technical corner practicing and getting them to watch football. That links in with the psych stuff. So getting to watch other players and listening to the coaches. Some stuff around responsibility in the social corner. So I guess that was born from my own experiences with my lad who played in the team, and getting him to be more responsible for looking after his kit and his boots and his shin pads, and just making sure that they're kind of being responsible and prepared. And then lastly, just in terms of the physical corner, making sure that they looked after themselves, getting plenty of rest, and just beginning to touch on things around diet and nutrition. But as I say, that was something which we put together, shared with the players, shared with the parents, just to kind of give just an idea about what we're trying to do in terms of developing the boys.
That's just on that. Phil, do you want to? I think you were maybe talking about the model with that question you've just asked me in the chat function. Do you want to unmute and just ask Darren?
Yeah. Hi, Phil. Fire away.
I hope you can hear us. But yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, my question really was, I've worded it, how has that changed throughout the age groups? But I was probably meaning more, has that changed throughout the age groups, and have you seen a change in the children's behaviour or their support with their teammates throughout the age groups? You say you've been doing it to under 16s from under 11s. I'm personally at the under 13 stage, having gone through the levels, but noticing changes in behaviour and etc. And just wondering how you managed to do and keep on top of all that, or how the kids have as well.
No, thanks, Phil. Good question. That model, that's probably a kind of a visual representation under those various different headings. There's probably a whole host of different things which reflect progressing through the ages. So as the boys transferred from foundation phase into youth development phase, but also acknowledging that there's some individual differences within the group, because they're all very different, but these are some consistent messages, which to this day I think we've always referred back to. So we've always impressed on the boys that we want them to invest effort for themselves and for others, show the right attitude, show the right commitment. So attitude in terms of game day, being prepared, commitment, turning up for training. And in terms of behaviours, we've wanted them to be consistent all the way through. So behaviours that we would be looking for at training that then cross over into the games. There's definitely been some shift, as you would expect, as the players mature and develop, and if you will, progressed from being a lively under-7 to now a precocious teenager who's 15, 16. But I've always referred back to the model. I think consistency would be a really key message. So I've been very consistent, even though the players have been changing. Does that answer that question, Phil?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's a good summary, really. And I suppose what you're doing as well is you're putting the responsibility on the individual as well, aren't you, by having clear expectations of them as individuals.
Yeah, I guess one of the challenges is when new players have joined us. And I'll touch on at the end. I inherited the team at under 9s, so I didn't start the journey at under 7s. So I managed to survive for that first season. I was just an enthusiastic parent because I genuinely didn't really want to coach my own lad. At under 8s, when the coaches realised that I was a coach, I was then kind of drafted in when parents weren't there, and I'd coach anybody and everybody within the age group that my lad was playing in. At the end of that under 8 season, there was a bit of a change. So one of the coaches left because his son went to play in academy football, and nobody really was wanting to step forward to take over the coaching. So I had my arm twisted, if I'm really honest. But when I made the commitment to under 9s, I said that I would take it all the way through to under 16s. So now we've got to under 16s. I said, because it was about developing those lads as players and young people, I felt that it had to be a long-term project. I'm a coach developer, but I'm first and foremost a coach and a player developer. And for real development to take place, you're looking at a 10-year process. So we're now we're coming close to those 10 years. So lots of things have changed, but there's been a lot of consistency in terms of I guess me as the coach and the other coaches, consistency in terms of the messages that we've shared. Some of the things that we do, routines and where we play and all those sorts of variables has changed, but the messages have always been consistent, and also the players have been pretty consistent as well. From that original group, and I'll show some pictures at the end. Most of the lads are still in the group. Those that aren't have progressed to play football elsewhere. Is that okay, Phil?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
No worries. Right, where were we up to? Here. Okay, right. This is it's a bit of a leap. I thought so. That's kind of some foundation phase stuff that's informed us. And this was where was this born? It was probably something which I wanted to share with the other coaches, but also certainly as the lads were becoming more interested in playing the game and the many different facets, we came up with something that visualized what we were about. So that was my best attempt again at a one-pager. So basics at the bottom in blue. We want the players to be able to, do all the things that you can see on the slide there. Pass the ball, receive it, turn with it, travel, whether that's dribbling, running with the ball. We always felt that 1v1s were important, and of course finishing. And those basics then were they, I guess, fitted with different elements of the game. So whether it was, passing and receiving being part of retaining and building, turning and travelling with the ball, and passing in terms of progress and play forwards, and then 1v1s and finishing from an attacking perspective around create and score. So that was kind of just a way of visualising some of the content which we've covered with the players from under 9s through to now as under 16s. From an out of possession perspective, those things that you can see at the top of the slide in red, those are that's some of the language that we've started to introduce the players to more recently. So in terms of press and the 3Ds as they're known, and then defending the goal. So a visual representation of what we've kind of covered within the technical corner. Now this will blow your hats off. It's something that we've introduced this season. So the lads are under 16s. We've created some visuals for them. We've wanted to, kind of influence them on game day. So what I'll quickly do is just run through what we've tried to create. So down the left-hand side, that's our team DNA. So again, you'll see those words that I've shared with you previously, but it is very much, it's about the team. Just moving across where we've got some visuals. We've got a couple of different formations that we've tried with the players. In possession and out of possession. Players have quite liked those because it's just allowed them to get some sense of what it looks like from a visual perspective. What you can see in the top right hand corner were just some things in terms of how who we'd like involved with those set pieces and what their responsibility is. And then down at the bottom, again, just a couple of visuals in terms of corners. Why corners? We noticed that this season it was one element of the game, set pieces, whether that was free kicks, but particularly corners. We didn't necessarily afford a lot of time to practicing them deliberately. So the lads were saying, well, we need some information around it. So provided it in a visual form, and then we've tried to integrate it into the the weekly training sessions that we'd have with the lads, so they do get an opportunity to practice them. But that's very much game-based practice. So that's just an example of kind of one of the resources that I've pieced together to help underpin some of the stuff around what we're about as a team, and some of the things from a technical, tactical perspective, and then personalising it for the players. I'm just conscious of time, James, and I know we want to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to go and appreciate the efforts of the NHS. So just give me a shout when you want to call half time.
Sorry, mate. I was talking
James.
there when I was talking there when I was muted. Just on that, Darren. So if we just work for one more minute, is that something that's just been introduced at the older age groups, or have you done that right through?
I've done it recently. It would be something which I think could apply to younger age groups. So that reflects 11v11. Could it reflect 9v9 and 7v7 and 5v5? Yes, for sure. A simplified version. I'm conscious that this season's been quite interesting in terms of finding out what what the lads have wanted, and some things have kind of been planned. So we have a new venue. We've got a link with a team that would play in the West Lancs League, which some of the guys might be familiar with. So it's a proper, it's a proper setup. So there's changing rooms, and for the first time ever, we've been able to use the changing rooms. So we've been able to display visuals and share stuff with the lads when they arrive. So it's been very much about a transition from junior football into youth football. So this was one of the ways of kind of sharing stuff with them that we talk about in training, but they don't necessarily get to look at.
Yeah. Sorry, Darren, do we want to break just with 58 minutes past? If we break, that's guys, good. And then we'll come right back to this in a few minutes. So if guys want to just jump out and clap, appreciate what the NHS are doing, and then we'll jump back in. So don't go anywhere, or we won't be going anywhere anyways.
No worries.
Cheers, Darren.
Is it Name That Tune? Name That Tune? Right, it's about 2 minutes past now.
I've got half time on me there.
Get it down your neck and give it a squeeze with it. People still doing it? People still popping? I don't know, I'm not. Yeah, just caught for 2 minutes. Count them out.
I'm back.
The music.
Cowbells being rung. Neighbour across the road was playing a tune on a set of pans.
Yeah, I've just put in, so there's people starting to drop back in now. We'll give it a minute or so, and then just make sure everybody gets back.
Yeah, so we put these together this season. James, but yeah, very much. I guess driven by the players. They wanted to look at stuff. So it's kind of been helpful.
I think I was only asking because I think that if we can, when we start to use visuals, even at the younger ages, it starts to give people that sort of sight of what you're looking at rather than just telling them.
Yeah.
And I think it'd probably be relevant for any age, just obviously simplified, as you've said. I think that's people starting to sort of come back in now. Let's have a look. Let's see. Back. Yeah, back. Hardy back, Justin back. Good stuff. Yeah, Darren, we're starting to get back in now, mate. So if you want to,
we're good to go.
Yeah.
Second half.
Second half, brilliant.
After sweet tea and orange segments. Okay, so I mean, just recapping, that was something we put together for the current season. Could it be something that you could adapt and use with younger age groups? Yes. What's the purpose of a visual? I think, as we were just discussing there, James, very, very, very much just to kind of get that consistency of message, and the lads like to look at something, and we've used these visuals in the changing room this year because it's the first time the luxury of a changing room. In all fairness, okay. This is probably something that people have got their own versions of, but that slide and that slide, we've used these in terms of individuals. So very much when the lads arrive, and if we're playing at home or we're in an away venue and we haven't got access to a changing room, try and get the lads to sit alongside who they're playing against, give them a visual to have a look at. It's been quite revealing which lads have really taken these on board. And when I've forgotten, one of the lads is going to, you're not going to get the visuals out because they want to have a read, they want to have a look at stuff, and they've been helpful. What I've also done is produce one of these for each player. So if somebody's been the goalkeeper or a central forward or a wide forward, we've got individual ones, and I've created that slide, laminated it, given it to the lads so they've got a copy for themselves, and then we've got stuff that we take on game day. That's something which I'm going to introduce for next season. We have used it a little bit this season, but I guess this break from the end of this season is almost like a start for next season. So I was having a little look at this, and I've just adapted it, just refreshed it, just changed it. So this is something which hopefully we'll start to introduce for the new season whenever that begins. But what you can see there is that's just the players listed on the left, and then just a couple of tasks for them to think about in terms of game day, in possession and out of possession. So nothing complicated. It's pretty simple and straightforward. So if I pick out a couple of examples, let me see. So Finn and Dennis, they're our goalkeepers, playing out from the back using a range of techniques. That kind of covers a multitude of things. So, we want them to play out from the back. That tells you a little bit about how we play. Range of technique, use the hands, got to use the feet, different techniques. And in terms of out of possession, getting them to really think about how they're supporting their defenders and how they're dealing with passes that come into that space in behind. So quite broad, but for the lads, it just gives them something to focus on. So I did say that we'd touch a little bit on our coaches. So it's about getting the right people. What do we mean by that? They're invariably parents or the other volunteers, but we want them to care about the players. That might, certainly, hopefully, one of the things that was come across this evening. Jen, I really care about the lads. It's what I'm about. It's about developing them as people as well as players. So we really want to get the right people. And the two guys that are also parents that help us with the sessions on a Thursday and game day. Jim, he's been there since the start, so we've got that consistency. He's not a technical coach. He kind of takes care of stuff in the psych and the social core, if it's fair to say. And then we've got another parent that's just started at the beginning of this season, and he's probably a little bit more technical, tactical. But there's kind of three of us, so we've got the right people. We do provide support. So in the case of Neil that's just joined us, he's just a level 1 coach. He's been supported to get his quals, and just as a club we do things like in-house CPD sessions. I've tried to step away from being the sole deliverer of that, but we've got some other guys in that are parents and involved with the club that will step in and do stuff, which is great. And we've got quite a bit of informal mentoring that exists. And I think I said at the start, I'm quite subtle with how I try and influence people, and if anybody wants ideas or wants resources, I'm kind of sharing it with them, but I don't force it on. And then I kind of thought it might be useful just to touch on some stuff with the parents. Interestingly enough, if any of your coaches are in those later age groups of the youth development phase, don't see the parents very much at training, and I think there's probably two reasons. I think one, they trust what we're doing. They are comfortable that the environment they create, how we behave around the lads, we've built that trust up over many years. So their attendance at training is, there's a couple that will attend, but not very, they're not there week in, week out. But also, as parents, they want the lads to develop more responsibility. So we've got lads that met their own way to training. Because of where we train at, some of them are able to get there on the bikes. Some of them will get lifts off other parents. So I don't see that as a negative. And I think it's a natural thing that happens as players go through the age groups. What is interesting is attendance at games is really healthy. So the parents really do enjoy coming and watching the lads play. How do we communicate? So whilst I'd like it to be face to face, I think increasingly, we've got a Facebook group, which we've had for a number of years. So that's just for the team. The club has got its own Facebook group. It's got its own Twitter page. But we've started to use our own app this season, Hasia, which has been great for developing responsibility with the lads. I'm wanting them to communicate to let us know if they're attending training, if they can't attend training because they've got other commitments at school or they're injured. I'd rather them let us know. So that's really, really helped with planning numbers for training sessions. And the same goes for them communicating to let us know whether they're available for games on the weekend. And we use that to communicate back with the lads in terms of when, if we've selected. I don't know whether that's the right word to use. Selected. We've had 19 players, and we're only able to play 16. So if everybody's fit and well, this season we've had to select 16 from 19, which has been interesting. But we've kind of then linked it back to our player development model in terms of attitude, commitment, effort, and performance. So what we've had to do, if we've had a full complement of players available, we've had to begin to be thinking about who we would take for games, whether they be league games or cup games or whatever it may be. And we've worked to, we kind of worked to rota. So that's worked really well, just in terms of communicating who's involved on the weekend, and the lads taking responsibility. So we introduced it at under 16s because we felt that was the right time. The parents are still involved in the group, so from a safeguarding perspective, they can see what information that we're sharing with the lads. And it's also been really helpful for just sharing session plans. So I would share a session plan to let lads know what's going to happen on a Thursday evening. Interestingly enough, you can see who's had a look at it and who's not had a look at it, and that can help with some of the questions that we use at training programs on training evenings. Plenty of informal contact over the years. Managing the parents' expectations. So historically, we've always had an informal pre-season get-together. This season, did it a little bit differently. Just created a video, stuck it on our Facebook group, and parents could have a little watch and have a little listen. But we just shared, what our goals were going to be, and an opportunity for anybody to ask questions. So really open and transparent. And I kind of reiterate, I'm the coach, but I'm still a parent at the same time. And just involving the parents and sharing feedback. So on match days, we've kind of come up with just a way of sharing stuff back with the parents, linking training with games. So it's kind of evolved, and it's called View from the Dugout. So I'll share a little, very shortly, just some stuff about Views from the Dugout. Social events. So still do social events. Go and watch football. Get them to watch a bit of non-league football. That's been really important in terms of gelling new players into the group. And we're still actively doing fundraising. So still get the lads, still get parents to get involved with stuff.
Darren, just a question that come in from Justin, and I think it's pretty straightforward, so I'll ask it.
Because we've explained it to them at the start of the season, we started with 18 players, no issues. We acknowledge that if all players were fit and available, we would have to make a decision around who we would leave out. They would only be left out for a maximum of one game. The reality, as it transpired over the course of this season, was that there was always somebody that was either unavailable because of other commitments away from football, or they had an illness, or they had an injury that was preventing them being selected. So there was probably only 3 occasions where we had more players who were available than the 16 slots. But because we communicated that with the parents and most importantly discussed it with the lads, we didn't really get any pushback. And I think the smallest squad that we took to a game was probably about 15. So we were really lucky in terms of availability and the players being fit and well to play. I guess because we take 16 on game day, that presents some challenges in terms of game time and opportunity to play. However, we've always worked on the basis that players would get a minimum of 50% of the game, although they'd probably get more than 50% of the game. And we make sure that the lads play because that's what they want to do. They want to train on a Thursday and they want to play on the weekend.
Has that been the same, Darren, through all the age groups where you've had to make sort of them decisions around sort of foundation through youth development, or has that just come to light at this top end?
No, certainly in the foundation phase when we started. So we were playing 7v7. We didn't start with the 5v5 that exists now. So we were playing 7v7. We carried in that first season 11 players. We just took everybody on game day. We just made sure that everybody was involved because that was kind of really important for them to play. As we've progressed through the age groups, the squad size has increased. But I think what you find is as you get into the youth development phase, some of the players will pick up injuries. So managing injuries and managing if they've got other commitments, whether that's school commitments or whether that's other family commitments, we've always wanted to make sure that we've got a healthy squad that we can fulfill fixtures, whether that's a league game or we've played lots of friendlies. We've played loads of football. So we want them to play as many games as possible to fuel that, if you will, that enthusiasm for playing the game. So to answer your question, it's probably become a bit more of a challenge this season because of the numbers of players that we've had registered, but it's not been a major issue.
Good stuff. I don't know if you did you have else on that last slide I think it paused on, mate, on your first point?
I know, and I've had to.
Or do we just want to open up to?
I've had to dip out. Let me
Sorry.
just.
Sorry, I mean, ultimately, because it's a real good overview. So any sort of burning questions from folk, if they want to unmute themselves and just sort of fire them out, I'm sure Darren will deal with them as they come or ask in the chat box, and we'll sort of have sort of 10 minutes if you want of
that's
any burning
fine.
questions. I've got a couple in backup, so if they don't come through, but I'll give everyone an opportunity. Just if you want to just jump it in the chat box, guys. If there's anything. One has asked, I think it was Chris, you must know, from the States, has asked if he could get a copy of that presentation.
He can, yeah.
So I'll leave that with you. Just bear with me. Ben wants to know what broadband you're using, just so he doesn't use them.
Do you know? Last week it worked perfectly fine, didn't it? When I was sat listening into Sally's stuff. Typical, isn't it?
It's you and Mr. Bateman. You've crashed the system. Just one question I wrote down, Dan, and around you mentioned about that. Your challenge around developing that club philosophy, and have you found that every sort of coach around you has bought into that, or is it just your single team that's under the sort of club banner, or has it had an impact on everybody else?
No, good question. I think we've got that, if you will, that feel about us as a club. So those headlines, if you will, those bits of the DNA, that's something which is really clear. Can I hand on heart say that all the coaches buy in and behave and follow the same, if you will, practice thinking as myself. No, because they're very different. But I think what we've got is we have got a culture within the club where we want to share. And if people want to pick my brains, so to speak, or they want help and advice, I don't force it on them. I think they kind of know what I do in terms of my job, and they know that I'm always willing to help them. But I think we've got a pretty good reputation in the area where we play our football, which is, round Preston and the surrounding areas, is that we're a community club. We've got good, we've got good people that are involved as the volunteers. There are a small number of those who fly close to the wind on occasion, and we kind of remind them about how we want them to behave and so on and so forth. I think we've also tried to get a clear way of how we try and encourage the lads and girls to play the game in the right way in terms of respect of their teammates, of the opposition that they're playing and the officials, and being sportsmanlike and determined and all those sorts of things. But also trying to play football that's enjoyable. So, if I cast my minds back, one of the questions I asked the lads when I kind of was thrown in as that under-9s coach, I said, do you want to play more like Barcelona, or do you want to play more like, I need to think very carefully about the example that I used at the time, probably somebody like Stoke City. And interestingly enough, the kids, said, we want to play more like Barcelona. And that allowed you to then question, well, what does that mean? Do you want to play a certain type of football? And that gave me, if you will, an idea of what we wanted to try and do in terms of making them better at playing the game, footballers, but all the soft skills, which is really what you're about in developing people. I think the volunteers that are there doing the coaching, that's first and foremost in the thinking.
There's sort of a few questions coming in now, mate. So, Phil, do you want to ask him, mate, and then we'll come to Huey.
Yeah, just quickly, Darren. Cheers. Just with regard to coaching sessions and training sessions that you put on.
Okay.
Certainly as you go through and get older in the age groups, how do you keep it still interesting and for the lads as they get older? Is it because obviously as you get older, you sort of play games, don't they? Really, it seems like that. Okay.
Yeah, good question, Phil. All the while, it's always been a games-based approach. So, what do I mean by that? When the kids were in the foundation phase, we played lots of games, lots of small number games, maximising contact on the ball, so that a lot of the stuff which you'll have seen, through Pete Sturgis and all the great work he's done in the foundation phase, is getting the kids to love being on the ball. What does games-based coaching look like now? So they're under 16s. We play a lot. So a typical training session, we will do an arrival activity or a warm-up type of activity. We'll then do something which I would describe as like a lead-in into the main bit of the session. And then the main bit of the session will either be, depending on numbers, it'll either be attack against defence. So we're really lucky we get half a pitch. So we play a lot of attack against defence. We focus on particular bits of the game. So on that playing model that I shared with you, so if we've been working, say, for anywhere between 3 and 6 weeks, we'll look at an in-possession theme. So we might be working on creating and scoring, and we'll do it in game-based practice. So attack against defence, and then on occasion we will play a small-sided game. Sometimes that's matched up, but invariably it's not matched up. So we'll play uneven numbers. And if we've got 14 there, it's 7v7. If there's 17 there, it might be 9 against 8. So we're quite versatile in what the games-based practice looks like. Individual, constraints-based coaching as well. We, probably like most of you guys, we get an hour. I steal a bit of time from the session ahead, so we arrived 25 minutes early. The boys arrive early. We get some space from the age. It's one of our younger age groups. They don't use all the space, so we get a time to do arrival activity and warm up, and then we get a good tune of probably about 55 minutes out of the lads. Attendance at training is good. I'd be really worried if attendance at training dropped. Why? Because we'd probably be not putting together practices or a session the lads enjoy. So there's a combination of the social corner, because a lot of them go to school together, or they go to about 5 or 6 different schools. So there's that social interaction, which is first and foremost in their thinking. They want to learn some stuff as well, and they want to play in practices that they enjoy, and it's game-based practices. Is that okay, that, Phil?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, cheers.
Just a couple more, Darren, and then I think we'll try and things. So Chris has put, thanks for that, Chris. Chris has dropped in a couple of Richard Short, a non-perfect dad, and Gordon McClellan, working with parents in sport, are 2 great resources. So if folk want to try them out, what I'll do is I'll drop them in on the channel once we've got this sorted. So thanks for that, Chris. Brian, are you able to unmute yourself, mate? And ask, that's quite specific. This will be one for Darren, I think.
Is it? Hi, Brian.
I'll ask it. You might be able to mute. If you had a player who was really good when the team is out of possession, e.g. vocal, a leader, a great organiser of the teammates, and a ball winner, etc., but struggles when in possession, looks to get read high, wide ASAP, doesn't want the ball at the feet, or vice versa, how would you tailor the training with it, without it being detrimental to the rest of the squad?
Okay. Individual challenges. So being really specific. So when I say individual challenges, some of them might be technical, tactical challenges. Some of them might sit in what I coin as like that right-hand side of the development model. So it might be some stuff around psych and social. So if it's confidence, it may be something that you need to work confidence, with that lens in the side corner, but how you might then develop that confidence through the technical and tactical corner. So getting them to be more willing to receive possession. So I think Brian's described there not being confident when the team's in possession, but that's something that you'd work at. You'd look to try and influence and improve over a number of weeks and months and seasons. So we've got the lads to do some, if you will, some player development plans. So they've, at the start of the season, we've asked them what they want to improve, and then I've got all that feedback from the lads, and then tried to collate that and put that into tasks for individuals, tasks for units, tasks for the team. So that's something that we've certainly done last season and this season, because the players are ready for in ILPs, I think they call them in the professional game, individual learning plans. In grassroots, it's just applying a bit of common sense.
Last one,
I
mate.
don't know whether that's answered this question. It was proper specific with that. He'll know his players. It's about them coming up with challenges that are really unique for that player.
Yeah. Last one, mate. I think we'll make it last one. I'm conscious of time for everybody. That's all. I mean, we can talk all night, as I'm sure, and I know Darren can definitely talk all night. So we're happy, but I'm just conscious of other people as well. Chris P, just how long do players spend on their plans, and are they updated every 6 weeks?
Players have put something together at the start of the season. We then did a mid-season sort of, I don't want to say a review. They adapted some stuff. We don't work on 6-week plans. We're not that sophisticated. Sorry to disappoint, Chris.
Good stuff, mate. Good stuff. I think that's about it from the questions. I think everybody will agree, and I know Darren spent a lot of time in Cumberland, and I just wanted to thank you again, Darren, for sort of coming in, because we've probably had some of the best people in the Northwest being able to try and influence in our area in particular. So, and I'm sure you'll all agree from this evening that the passion and enthusiasm that Darren certainly has, even you've seen the level of detail in his own grassroots team, I think, I think stands out certainly from the crowd. So just thanks very much, Darren, for that.
No problem. And I'll, the stuff I've put together. If anybody wants the slides, if they come to you, happy to share stuff. And
definitely.
If anybody wants to kind of contact us, if you share my email address, my work's email address, that's fine. And I am in Twitter world, but I wouldn't consider myself to be that really active Twitterer. But I am on that platform somewhere.
No,
is he
great
back?
stuff.
Is he back in the room?
Well, this is.
I think so. Can you hear us?
Here he is.
Oh yes.
Guys, so what we've done each week is we've just sort of been introducing the next sort of guest for next week, and this is definitely one, and Darren will agree with me, this is definitely one not to be missed. So Ian, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, mate, and just give a quick overview.
Well played, Daz, tonight. Enjoyed that. Only caught the second half after me clap. So enjoyed that. Next week I don't know if I'll have the dog with me, but we'll have a little look at some futsal stuff. So Ash Higgins, who he's a coach at Liverpool with the 11s. He's been at he was head of the foundation phase at Burnley last year. He's been at Blackburn and Preston before that. So Ash has agreed to come along with us, and Steve Daly, who some of you might have come across. He just retired actually as a player with the England Party Society team. He's got about 130 odd caps. So he said he wants to get involved as well. So we've got some bits and pieces around futsal that we can have a chat, and I think the focus we're going at is how it applies to football stuff, and how you might want to use it, and what might drop out of it. So that's the plan, and Ash and Steve will be with us, and we should have a good time.
Great.
So
excellent.
So
Great.
I hope that the internet will work.
Well, I think we're relying on that Lancashire area. So I thought you were in the caravan for a second, which is maybe why it dropped out there. But great stuff, guys. And I'll be honest with you. So it definitely is one I've spent quite a bit of time with Steve, and he was kind enough to come up to our dinner, our county dinner last year, and he was our special guest. So if anybody on the call that was with us, he sort of gave an overview of his stuff, and he's an unbelievable guy, and I know Ian will agree. He's phenomenal. So I was actually lining him up for his own little part, but Ian's hijacked him with us. So we'll maybe get him on again. But no, it'll be class. I know it will, listening to the three of them guys. So again, just Darren, I sort of jumped ahead with this. Don't contact Darren on Twitter if that's not what it is. I don't think I'll drop everybody his work email. So I'll add that in there. And if anybody's got anything, I'll get the slides and we'll share that. This has been recorded, so it'll go on our YouTube page. Certainly either late this week or early next week. And people can review the episode along with the previous two. Or previous three, sorry. I'm still working with Microsoft around the second episode with Matt Craddock. So once I've got that sorted, they are onto it now. We'll get that up and running. But Sally's from last week, if you want to go back deep again in the side corner, Sally's is there. And you probably don't want to listen to me and Dave again on that first test week. So, but that's certainly in there. What I would say, just to try and help us out and keep people sort of active in this certainly time of where we've just announced that we're another sort of 3 weeks on lockdown, is that we're going to continue this weekly. Please just keep sharing it with people. Leave some stuff on social media, retweet, shares, just to get the word out. I mean, we've had Chris great to join us tonight from all the way from United States. So we set off with it was just going to be Cumberland, but pretty much, to be fair, and as you all know, with us in Cumberland, we're not that precious about things. So it's open to anybody. I know we've classed it as the Cumberland Coaches Coffee Club, but ultimately, if someone drops us a line, contacts me, however they want on them details there, I will share the invite with them. And Chris, I know I've seen your question. I'll add you into the group so that you get them on a weekly basis, the invites. And again, my final sort of thing, which I've ended with every week, is please just keep in touch. So some of us are still working, just so people know, from a CFA perspective, we're in the same system with the FA, so we're on like a furloughed rota system. So you'll see that on the correspondence that's gone out. So one of us will be in each week, but you'll definitely get Ben all the time, because he's the guy that's put the cape on, and he's still running the cause. But you'll get one of us as we go. So yeah, there is a YouTube channel that the FA have launched, so check that out and have a look. But once again, thanks for your engagement this evening, guys. It has been a pleasure as always, getting that. I think it's that Northwest team back together with Mr. Bateman on now and Darren as previously. So thanks again, guys.